How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. It feels like it's been a while.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. Yeah, how was your vacation last week?
It was good. It was good. It's funny. We were camping, and it just seems like it's a lot of work to like get everything ready, and then like just full on for the days that we were out there. So yeah, I wouldn't say it necessarily felt relaxing. I mean, there was definitely moments, and then I had a couple days over the weekend there that just didn't do too much. So that was nice. Nice to kind of
Yeah.
like just have that for a couple days.
Now, do you guys take like a camper or tent camping or?
Just tenting at this point.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 And then is that like at a campground with bathrooms or you kind of do? Yeah.
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 Yeah. I've done a little bit of backcountry camping in the past,
hmm
but haven't quite gotten the boys ready for that yet. But it's definitely like something I want to do. Like maybe even next year, I think it'd be pretty fun to do that.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I mean, we did we did some camper camping, and then when I got older, my parents we go to the Boundary Water area and canoe camp. So which is really cool. But I'm definitely at that stage. My kids are just getting to the age where it's like this might be fun again. My brother's taking his kids backcountry camping when they're little, and I'm like, do you have a death wish or what? Like, it just
Yeah.
sounds so stressful and horrible to take little kids. And like, it's hard enough taking care of them at home. I'm good. I don't have a point to prove that I can do it in the wilderness.
Sure. For
So.
sure. For sure. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Um, anything else that you want to just like we've been in conversation over messages today, but just anything else that you want to speak to from the last couple of weeks or the conversations we've had or the practices that you've taken on?
Um, yeah, not necessarily. I mean, it, everything's just kind of weird right now because I've got so much. I've got work's been slow with my business or my coworker. Um, but I've got one huge project I'm working on with my own stuff that's um, still in the planning stages, still trying to get some estimates together and stuff like that. And then another small job. Um, so it's frustrating. It's like I'm putting a lot of hours into it. I've probably got 50, 60 hours into this job already that I haven't gotten any money down on because I'm just trying to get numbers to even know where we're at to get a deposit on anything. So um, it's frustrating, like coming out of being slow and to really I gotta keep reminding myself that I'm actually working, even though I'm not seeing any, profit from that work yet. So that's been challenging just to kind of accept, that it is. And then with the 4th of July here for holiday, that was kind of the middle of the week, kind of messed that week up. And um, so things have been slow going on that. And so just again, really practicing that patience on like, okay, you're doing stuff, accepting it for what it is, but just being like, all right, let's, give this project. It started out, they called originally contacted about the new kitchen, and it's turned into a 3,500 square foot full house remodel, new master bathroom, complete remodel, and add a double the size of their screen porch on the back of their house and a bunch of stuff. So, I mean, hopefully that all goes through and it'll be a good chunk of work. It'll be exciting. I mean, it's hard doing those numbers. I mean, we're getting the numbers of like you could build a new house for what the cost of this remodel is. And so
Wow.
getting nervous on the point of like, okay, when I have this conversation of here's what you're spending several $100,000 on a project, like are they going to be like, I think we want to build a new house instead if we're going to put that much into a house. So it's, yeah, I've thrown that out there. Like, as much as they want to do a lot of custom work and it would be a really cool project, but just, the back of my mind to I'm like, is this even going to go through? So,
Mm.
um, it's, yeah, um, so yeah, it's been interesting. A lot of stuff to process, trying to go through all the details of it and make sure you don't miss out. You know, I mean, just one day I sat down and just figured out faucets and doorknobs and towel bars, and there's $20,000 right there just in those little
Wow.
fixture type items. And it's like, okay, so you miss one, all that stuff adds up really quickly. So just to trying to process it all has been a lot. As I've kind of been out of practice too of doing a lot of the quoting because a lot of what I've been doing the last few years is more just on site, take the materials I have, working with it, and not have to put a quote together of that scale. So it's been a bit of a
Hmm.
challenge, a little bit of a definitely pushing me to the edge there. But it's always frustrating when you're doing quotes because it's like one day you've got 8 hours, 10 hours in the office, and then you send all this information off to subs, and then you wait anywhere from a day to 2 weeks to get answers back. And then it's like, okay, now what do I do? As soon as I start into something else, then I get calls
Mm.
back. And so just trying to get some things done at home. And that's just been another challenge of like, it just seems like you get in these phases where I had some, what should have been a 45-minute repair on my truck took like almost a week. I got ordered the part, it was wrong. Went to a parts store, got it, it was wrong. Went to the dealership, finally got it. Um, and just a lot of projects around the house that are that way. It's like, just running into those things. It's like get all geared up to work on it, get torn into it, and it's like, oh, okay, don't have the right part, even though I should have. And um, just not getting hung up on those points, like and not letting that just ruin my day to the point of like, all right, I tried, it failed, I give up, I don't know what else to do. Um, which is
Hmm.
hard to pivot from that when it's so um, like, okay, I thought I had 3 hours worth of work. Well, the wrong part, I got half an hour into it on
Mm.
a project, and then it's like, now I can't do anything. The stores are closed, or they have to order a part or whatever. And so now do I do it the rest of the day? Um,
Yeah.
so it's just been a lot of those kind of the last several weeks. It's just been a lot of that frustrating. And, I mean, I think it's trying to look at the positive side. Like, obviously, when I get into this big project, it's going to have a ton of that. I mean, there's going to be contractors don't show up when they're supposed to, or my materials on my parts that I'm doing aren't going to show up, or, just really
Mm.
being grounded, I guess, to and working on that ability to pivot, or if you can't pivot, just to be let it be what it is. Like, you know, this really sucks, screwed up a whole day's worth of work, but you know, I'm doing what I can with the situation. So yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of where and then this, what was it? Friday, we had some really bad storms come through, lost power for about 24 hours. Some big trees in our property went down and pick out power lines right in front of our house. And so there's a bunch of stuff there that's got to get cleaned up and dealt with. And so, yeah, it's been a challenge, I'll say that.
Sure.
And then we've tried to do some camping here the last couple weeks, and it's just, I think since COVID hit, the camping people got so into camping, and now like we've tried to find campsites, and you've got to book campsites like, you know, 3, 4 months in advance. And it's so weird. When I was a kid, we just got to get off work on
Show
a
up.
Friday. Let's go camping this weekend. And the days of that are long gone because, we'll do that kind of Wednesday. Hey, we should go camping this weekend and look at the, try to find a spot. And it's like, oh, nothing. Well, next weekend. And it's like, nope, not till the end of the summer. Is there any campsites hardly available? So,
Right.
just a lot of those things where it's like trying to be, I guess that whole scared leader kind of shows up where it's like
Mm.
trying to show leadership to my kids and in my home and in all these areas, even in business. And it's like then things just kind of crumble, fall apart. And it's like, okay, this is where that hesitancy is coming from. It's just
Mm.
like, I don't know if you want to call it a bad run of luck or whatever, but just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And just realizing like, okay, like how do you, I mean, the one day we looked at, my daughter and I think, looked for a campsite for 6, 8 hours. Finally found one, and we're like, all right, it's not ideal, but whatever, we'll go with it. Well, then I went to book it, and they stuck on like it was going to cost us, I think, like $60 or $70 a night for the campsite after they added fees to it. And I'm like, well, we could stay at a hotel almost for that. If you get a price line room, it's almost that much. And you don't have to drag the camper and deal with all that stuff. You know, and so just a lot of those things where it's like trying to show up, trying to not let those discouraging things get to you. And it's just like, how do you be at cause in those situations when it's, when it's one
Mm,
thing when it's, we've even talked, just this whole year has been like one thing after another where it just really feels like, okay, so there's a setback, move on to the next thing. Oh, that's a setback. Okay, move. And then after like 10 of those, it's like, okay, is anything going to go through? Is anything going to work out? Like keeping that drive and that motivation to continue to try when it's like setback or failure or whatever you want to call it after one after another, just back to back. And it's like, right, at some point, there's got to be something to give me a little drive,
sure.
like, hey, things do go right, and not just get down and be like, yeah, screw it, nothing goes well. So,
Hmm. Yeah, and definitely not to take away from any part of the experience, right? It sounds like there's, like you said, like you're practicing in terms of these jobs and putting up quotes that it's like, yeah, I've got to be able to, you know, be prepared. Like be prepared that like, hey, some days things aren't going to go as I want to, and I have to be able to adjust. I have to be able to shift things around, right? So like definitely hear that piece of it. And there is a part that speaks back to our last conversation around like what I'm present to. It's like, are you even present to any wins?
mhm, right. Yeah, and I think, that's one of the things I try to be more mindful of. I mean, I think one big thing is just looking at the overall experience of these constant or consistent setbacks and going, okay, what can I learn from those?
Hmm.
Like, what this all sucks. And even if it is, if I'm not missing some wins, like let's just say there's no wins, what can I learn from that? How can I accept that for just the difficult time that it is? And then, like you're saying, taking that another step of like, okay, so what are the wins? I mean, even if they're small, like,
Hmm.
I mean, one of the things yesterday I tried working on something and um, I needed a part for it. Went in, thought I had the right part. I had some bracket that needed welded and so and repainted and stuff. Well, I got that part done. And I'm like, okay, granted, the project isn't done. It's for my lawnmower. My yard's a foot and a half tall because my mower's been broken for a couple weeks, waiting for parts. And it's like, okay, the yard didn't get mowed, but at least I was successful on the parts that I was able to accomplish. Like
Hmm.
the parts that were in my control, like I couldn't go get the part because the part service closed being Sunday and things like that. But hey, I did get my end of that part done and I did what I could do. And so, I mean, I think that's more than just looking at the steps that were done, maybe not 100%, but 75% of it's done, being able to go, the part that I was in control of is actually accomplished. And so I think there's a
Hmm.
bigger win to be seen there that's like, okay, yeah, they're out of control things that really there's nothing that could have been done that I really
Hmm.
cannot be at cause to. The parts I could be at cause I actually was. Um, obviously like this big project, like being frustrated with it taking longer to get some numbers nailed down, to actually get some deposit down on the job, going, this is a pretty cool opportunity. It's a referral from
Hmm.
another customer of mine. So there's that. I mean, I pretty much haven't had to do any sales on this job. Our friend said, you're good. We want to hire you. Can we get this within budget? So that, there's that, which is a really like,
Yes.
you know, so I haven't had to do any sales on this really to speak of because they're of the past work I've done, whether that be the integrity that I've had in my business for the last 16 years or just the craftsmanship, the skill, whatever that's that. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to it that are just taking those for what they are. That's a huge win. Um,
Hmm.
so there definitely are wins. It's again, I think probably what's hanging me up the most is that wanting to feel like I'm more accomplished, that I have more things checked off a to-do list, and I've got like 100 things that are 70 to 90% done, but not complete. And
Sure.
so just feeling like they're not checked off, they're still on my mind, so they're not done. Is probably where a lot of that defeated feeling comes from. Like I just want to check some stuff off and get them off my mental, out of my mental space. And it's just a bigger project than that. And
Hmm.
again, leads to an opportunity to use that time to be like, okay, what are some tools you can use to tackle, um, you know, those tasks, not how can you kind of categorize some of that stuff that needs to be set off to the side that's taking up mental space, isn't off the checklist, but is getting done, is on hold, and just kind of adding more to my plate without it, those on hold things tying up so much of my bandwidth in my mind.
Hmm. Yeah.
I like to get to the end of the day and you have your checklist is done. And I feel like at the end of the day, nothing's checked off. Everything's just right there, so close to be checked off, but it can't be checked off the to-do list for the day. And just realizing like, okay, just make a longer running list of almost completed things that, you know, are waiting on something else to finish it up.
Well, and that might connect to, the deeper coaching conversation there, but at this, the a thing to potentially just be present to there is like, are you associating your worth to what's being accomplished right now?
Right. Yes. Yeah, 100%. I think um that's something I've been present to for the last few weeks is like, let's say, looking at my income. I mean, it's with work being slow, not making as much money over the last, I mean, it's been almost 9 months since I've really had any steady income, little oddball things here and there that I've
Hmm.
just been able to, live off savings or whatever odd things to get through. But, so it's like my daughter wants to go camping or go for a trip. And it's like, well, we just really don't have the money. And putting a
Hmm.
lot of worth in that, like feeling like a failure. I don't, it's summertime. We want to go do something fun and have them tell the kids, like, we just can't afford it right now. Um,
Hmm.
but then not putting my worth in that. And one of the cool things is that's opened a door for us. That's just taking little day trips to go places and just taking a drive for the day and doing some exploring more locally, not, overnight trips, but just some fun things. And that's really opened a door for some good opportunities too. Um, but yeah, really like, okay, I'm a failure because I can't tell my kids, yes, we can go do all these trips, or what is my true worth here? Is it,
Hmm.
you know, one of the things that really hit was I've been struggling, just feeling like, at my age, I shouldn't be going this bit far between steady work. It did with a business that I've been running for 16 years. And one of the things my daughter brought up was she's like, I just feel like she's like, you just seem like you have everything figured out and you've got a plan and you've got it all under control. And it was one of those things. It was like, are we talking about the same person? Because I feel like right now my life is chaotic and not in control and I don't have a plan. Um, so that was a real win, I think, just to hear that her perspective of that is, yeah, you've got these things going on, but you have direction still. You still have that vision. You still have
Hmm.
that um, purpose. Like what she's speaking to is, I have purpose, whether or not life is going like shit or not.
Right.
And to hear like she brought it up to me, um, and it was interesting. It was really encouraging. Like, okay, so I don't feel like I have purpose, but I do to my kids. She's seen that, and so what my perception of the situation is apparently is skewed from what others see from the situation.
Okay. So, and again, there's a number
And
of
I,
threads that we can kind of go with in the conversation to come. Is there anything else that you want to share, or do you feel like we can start to move into the coaching conversation?
yeah, I think we can move kind of move into that conversation. I mean, I think it all kind of dovetails right into all of that.
Yeah, for sure. And is there any practices or grounding work that you want to do first, or do you feel like we can just dive in?
No, I think we can kind of dive into that.
Okay, cool. So from, just stuff that you submitted before the conversation to, what's present now, like, is there a central theme that you see for us to explore today?
Well, I think, I mean, it kind of goes off of what we talked last time is finding that deeper, higher, whatever you want to call it, purpose um, that isn't tied to things, people, or experiences, good or bad. Um, I think that's really the theme that I'm seeing here is all these different things are um, does that is that my worth? And I feel like from a big picture, all the things I've been dealing with, I think that's the lesson to be learned right here is finding my grounding when life's going like shit,
Hmm.
with, you know, are still kind of rocky with my younger two daughters, but, you know, the family situation's rough between the divorce and everything like that. Work going slow. I don't have that to distract me. And I think there's something to be said to being able to manage, cope with, deal with, work through my divorce with not having typically this time of year I'd be working 50, 60 hours a week, plus taking care of the kids. So really no time to sit and think. And it's interesting. I mean, Ashley, my wife and I got together last week to do some divorce paperwork, and she's just like, I haven't even had time to think about anything. She's been working like 60 plus hours a week, maybe even 70. And I just realized like, while it sucks where I'm at, well, I wish I had busyness to distract me. She's so distracted from some of those mental conversations she needs to have with herself that she can't deal with it. And have the opportunity right now to actually work through those things. And I think hers is kind of self-inflicted, trying to distract herself from that. But I don't have those distractions so that I can actually process and work through and deal with some of those things. Um, and so there's another kind of win that's in
Hmm.
wrapped up in what appears to be shitty is an opportunity that can be used as a real gift right now.
Sure. And as you just sit with that concept of life purpose, do you feel like you've got it fully figured out, nailed down, it's locked
No,
in?
no, definitely not. I mean, it's to a certain extent. It was interesting. I was rewatching that day one of the Leading the Feminine, and I mean, we kind of talked about like what's the purpose alone in life, and you mentioned Dr. Glover talking about the great cake of life, and the woman or other people are the icing to it. It was really an interesting analogy to my situation because I don't like cake plain. It's boring, it's dry without the icing. And so I don't look at cake as something to be enjoyed by myself. I want that icing. And it really goes into the conversation we had last time of what is the purpose of life alone. And I'm like, well, it's about as much as cake. Throw it in the trash. Like with,
Mm.
sticking to that analogy that it's like, I don't like cake. I like icing. And, I feel too much like a fat ass if I just go eat a bowl of icing. So I mix a little cake with it to make it a little more healthy. But, it was an interesting like concept to use that analogy because I'm like, if it came down to me eating just a piece of cake without icing, I'm not interested. And
Okay.
so that really fits into life.
Sure. And well, it is a great checkpoint as well, right? Because that's a concept that comes from somebody who sees the world in that way. And
Right.
it is a place of checking in with yourself in terms of like, what would you what would you see your purpose as? What do you see your calling as in the world?
Well, I mean, and that's where, if kind of like we talked last time, you put me on a deserted island for the rest of my life, nobody else around. Like at that point, it's just survival because there's nothing. What legacy do you leave if you die on a deserted island in the middle of the ocean? Like nobody knows, didn't make a difference to anyone's life. What, you know, you could live. I mean, there's a certain level of self-worth and integrity, knowing you're doing the right thing. I mean, that's really where integrity shows up, is
Hmm.
what you do apart from anyone else. But what decisions, I mean, you could put a serial killer on a deserted island and they're not going to kill anybody because there's no one there to not kill, so like what difference does your morality, does your integrity really make when it comes down to you? And there's obviously certain levels of um my integrity, that value in that, like that personal self of pride, view of pride you have of yourself or whatever, that's um yeah, I'm proud of myself for having integrity. But to a certain degree, when there's no one else around, does that actually matter? There's a lot of times integrity is like, well, what do you do when nobody's looking? Do you steal that thing? Well, what if it doesn't affect anyone else in the world, if you steal or don't steal, it comes at no cost to anyone else, then what's the difference? Um, I mean, obviously, this is on a deep hypothetical level, but if that's what you're condensing it to is just you alone, what does that look like? I mean, you could open that up to a broader sense of just how does that affect everyone from my family to a bigger group,
Hmm.
excluding family and friends, just to the world in general. Then I think there's some purpose to it again. I mean, one of the things that this project I'm working on that excites me about the job is, I was talking, the guy he's a credit counselor. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So, I mean, it's kind of coaching type stuff for people's credit issues. And we got talking about that a little bit. And I'm like, one of the things I struggle with in construction is a lot of customers don't care about, I don't feel like I'm making a difference in their life. And he's like,
Hmm.
well, you'll definitely make a difference in our life. I mean, you're going to create a space for us to enjoy our family, our, kids and grandkids and all of those things, and have family get-togethers that are memorable. And I've got another customer that I've done work for, and we're friends on Facebook, and she'll post family gatherings around the island of the kitchen that I built. And that's a good feeling because you get to see and be part of, like, oh wow, you are really enjoying the work that I've done for you. I mean, there's a lot of work that I do that's, putting siding on somebody's house. It's a different color, sure, but does it
Hmm.
really affect their day to day? I mean, do they really enjoy the time with their family better because their house is blue instead of white? You know, um, and so there's definitely that aspect of it, just looking for ways to have effect in people's lives. Like, is this really going to be a life change? Are you spending all this money on your remodel? What is that? Is that just an exchange of money so that I can pay my bills and you can, you know, have a fancier house that the neighbors can be more jealous of? Or is it really because you want to have a nice place for your family to come visit? Um, so I guess that's where a lot of that comes from. Like if if you take it to that, yeah, making a difference in people's life of that actually is practical, I guess is the right word, like practical change that's actually, you know, affecting lives.
Hmm. Yeah, the piece that I'm present to is that um if we were to put this on like a pendulum, that the pendulum of your life to this point has been service to others to such a degree that the other side of the pendulum where the focus is just on you is non-existent, right? In that
Right.
sense. And
Yep.
if we just like, you know, work with that in a sense, what will the ultimate impact be on purpose for your life from that place?
From which place? Finding the balance point in the middle, or
Or just that the pendulum is swung so far the other way?
to serve it to the site of service, you mean?
Or just like other,
Yeah.
right? Service to
Right.
other.
Yeah. Um, well, I think, I mean, there's been different points, but well, what's interesting is when shortly after my first marriage ended, I did quite a bit for myself. I mean, I really got into dirt biking and snowmobiling and had these hobbies. And then when my youngest son was born, I really just didn't have time to do those things. And then when my Ashley and I were together, I didn't really have time for those things. And I'm
Hmm
starting to find more time now to be able to do those things. I mean, with my first marriage, the biggest thing is I was trying to start a business with four little kids and, start my life and career and family all at once. And there just was zero time, zero money, any extra resources they had went into the business and developing and building that. Um, but I do see a trend when I'm in a relationship that my personal needs completely get ignored. And not so much for even my kids, but specifically in a relationship with a woman. And so I think one of the things that I'm at now is making sure if I get into another relationship or where my relationships go, to not put that on the back burner. Um, and keeping those goals and those desires and those personal things from getting run over by other people's needs.
hmm
Um, you know, but like as if a bigger overarching purpose, I mean, there was still friends, during that time where I was doing um, my own hobbies. A lot of what I was doing was also on my free time helping a buddy, you know, remodel his garage and just, which he was my buddy I dirt biked with. And it had some benefits towards us riding together and some opportunities. So there was some selfishness to it a little bit, but um, service to others has always kind of been a big part of my who I am.
hmm
Um, and I think that's good as long as it's balanced with self-care.
Sure.
I mean, I think ultimately, like when I'm depressed, the best way to get me out of depression is to come alongside and help someone else with whatever their need is, whether that's they're going through a hard time themselves or I think, I guess my view is if you're so self-absorbed and only focused on you, those people tend to be really unhappy, and I don't think there's much joy to be found in complete self-service. Um, so, but again, with nice guy tendencies, it's real easy for that pendulum to go from center to far to the side of only taking care of other people's needs.
hmm Yeah. And so if we come back to even just that beginning part of establishing a direction for the conversation, what do you see, right? You've lived this life to this moment, and what do you want?
Well, I think, as I get older, some of those things have changed a little bit. I mean, even I was one of my buddy's dads is the one that made the group of people that went out west dirt biking. And he just sold his dirt biking because there's not much riding around here. And I've been having trouble to
Hmm.
find places to take my kids. So, I mean, I think one of the things, big picture, is I would like to move.
Mm.
Um, right now with my kids, that's probably not really in the cards, but you know, as the kids get older, what ways can I establish a transition out of Iowa to somewhere where there's more exciting, fun things to do? Um, so that's one of the things. And like that's again where like some of my struggle, like, okay, yeah, I'd like to dirt bike. Well, with having my son, my 6-year-old son full time, it's pretty hard to plan a trip for me to go out of state for a week to go dirt biking right now at this stage of his life. And there's not a lot of places locally to ride. So how can I kind of maybe that's something that
Hmm.
just has to go on the back burner, but what can I do then to replace that in the meantime or to kind of, you know, maintain that hobby but not maybe to the full extent that I'd like to. Um, and even like with some of the stuff with traveling with my kids and camping a little more farther out, like that's presented its own set of problems. And it's like, okay, well, that's something I want to do. Um, but at the same time, spending $100 a night to go camping seems a little ridiculous too. Like, so how can we travel? Can we just take the car instead of the truck and the camper and go spend the night in a hotel or an Airbnb or something like that, or even tent camping? Um, so I think in a certain way, I've established, I guess part of what I'm hung up on is I know what I want, and some of the things just aren't very feasible at the time. Like, you know, and so then structuring life a little bit long term of how to make that happen. Um, I think I've made a lot of changes going from nice guy tendencies of always giving up what I want. I've got a pretty good idea of what I want. I just can't exactly attain a lot of those things at the moment. But, building a life that gets me there is kind of the goal that I have.
Mm. Um, it feels like this is sort of the part where you stop. So you get into this conversation of like, I know what I want, and I can't necessarily see how I can get it now. So it gets pushed off into the future, which
Hmm.
again, I get. Um, and that's one way of living.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I mean, what I'm kind of hearing you say is that enough? Or do I want to continue taking steps to get to those next goals, I guess? Um, which is, I mean, I feel like things that have huge impact on my life here for the last year and a half have been just all over the place. I mean, first it was with my wife, now it's with my younger two daughters or my kids or whatever. It was like a couple months ago, all the girls went to Hawaii. They were wanting to move to Hawaii, and I didn't think I'd see them much at all. Okay, well, then that frees up the possibility to move now a lot. Well, now their mom's moved back and doesn't want to move to Hawaii. They're staying in Iowa. Okay, well, now I'm kind of back to I'm stuck in Iowa. Um, and so, I mean, I think there's not whatever. My youngest daughter is what is she now? 12. So there, in 6 more years, she'll be an adult, and that kind of frees up the obligation to be available and present for those kids. Um, I feel like, right now that's kind of something that has to be put off for another 6 years. But I think one of the things to look at there is if I do get in another relationship, to really keep that present to is the person I'm dating willing to move out of state at some point? Is that something they want or not? Um,
Hmm.
is um, and then the whole level of yes, I can move my business. Um, for the last several years, my business has been really slow, not much opportunity for growth, and all of a sudden now I've got two um, huge projects, far bigger than any other project that I've had in the last 16 years, as potential possibility between a new home to build and um, this remodel project, which is essentially practically a new home. So that's the direction I want my business to go, that I've been wanting to go, and it just felt like that was kind of a dead end here. And I'm like, okay, so maybe I need to move to a better um, area that has more opportunity for this work. Now it seems to be presenting itself. So it's like, okay, if I line everything else up, do I move if my business is going the direction here that I've been wanting it to for 16 years? Like, or does that open it up? I mean, one of the things that I'm trying to work towards is subcontracting a lot more work out instead of doing every phase of it myself. So there's money to be made on some of the work and delegating some of that work so that I don't have to be on the job site doing it all myself. So does that free up enough time that travel is more of a possibility? So I stay where I'm living here, but not necessarily where I want to be. But that opens the door to the possibility of doing like some Airbnbs or something across the country that I could go, you know, travel to and stay in my own place, having a rental
Are you
house
okay if I
somewhere
pause
around.
you for a sec?
Hmm. Yeah.
So this is a great opportunity to just even reflect. What do you notice is just even happening in the conversation right there?
Well, I mean, not being a cause ultimately, like allowing a lot of those external things to have
Mm,
impact on what I want, which they're difficult. Like I've wanted my business to go a certain direction. It's not been going that way here. So I kind of gave up on that market. Well, then as soon as I gave up on it, then it's like, okay, well, now it's popping up. Maybe I don't hate living. I mean, before it was like, well, I hate living here because there's nothing cool to do. You got to drive 6 hours to see anything cool for sightseeing or, whatever. And the work sucks. So what's the point of living here? Well, now it's
hmm.
like, okay, if my business took off and I started making, the kind of money I've been wanting to, is the sightseeing, the area sucking so big a deal if I'm making more money to where I can afford to travel more? But I would say the big, I suppose probably what it comes down to is a real solid clarity on what it is I want ultimately.
Yeah.
Do I want success in business or do I want to live somewhere that's cool, you know, live on the side of a mountain and have poor business, but at least the bills are paid and I live in a cool place that when I don't have work, I can still enjoy living there. Um, and I guess that's something that I haven't really, it's a little looser from your main purpose in life, but some of those desires of like, okay, well, if I lived in a cool place the last 9 months, work's been slow, at least I could have been dirt biking in my backyard in the mountains if I lived
Sure.
there, you know, um, which isn't ultimately what I want. I'd much rather be able to put in a 40-hour week and, you know, consistently and have that just satisfaction of my work rather than, playing all day. Um,
Yeah. Well, and it's you're definitely opening up a conversation here, right? Because I would, it feels like to me that you have an idea of the things that you want in your life, but there isn't actually like a central driving force. Like there isn't
okay.
like hey, this is what my life represents, and if my life represents this, then I just like follow that path,
Right.
right? Because in a sense, it could be like, yeah, if I choose that my life is about business and making money, my actions and behaviors are going to be in accordance with that. If I
Hmm.
choose that my life is about leisure and lifestyle and play, then my actions are in accordance with that.
Hmm.
And um, so as you hear that, just what shows up for you.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think one of the things that comes down to is one of the parts that factors into my desire to be successful in business is from what my parents think of me. That kind of discouraged me from going into business for myself. So part of me wants to do well, business in business to kind of see, I knew I could do it and to prove them wrong. So does that matter really? Not, no, screw it. I mean, whatever. Who cares what they think of me? Um,
Hmm.
my brother chose the leisure life. He doesn't work a whole lot. It's not very financially um, established at all, but he lives in northern Wisconsin and is within miles of lakes and places to ski. And, he's in a vacation area and lives there and kind of just lives a life of vacation. And my parents look down on that. So there's a part of me that's like, no, I'm not going to be that person. I want that kind of, but I'm not going to be that screw off that goes and plays at the lake all day instead of actually getting their work done.
Hmm.
I mean, some of that is who I am, just as a person. I'm the type I want to get my work done out of the way and then we can go have fun. Um, but I definitely see what you're talking about of like is it 50-50 leisure work? Is it 40-60? Like what amount of that is what I'm looking for? And I think that's something that I really need to, um, like when I started doing cabinetry and stuff, I mean, everybody was like, "Oh man, you're so lucky." Everybody's kind of dream is a lot of guys' dream is to have woodworking tools in their garage and do it as a side gig. And like you get to do that every day, and it's like, yeah, but when that becomes a daily grind, it's no longer a hobby, and it's not nearly as much fun as going out and piddling around in your garage to make jewelry boxes. Um,
Hmm.
so, I mean, part of why I went into what I did is because it was fun and I enjoyed it. Well, after it's been a daily grind for 16 years, it's still enjoyable, but it's far less fun. So, I mean, I think, part of, and even like doing the Airbnb things and the rental houses, like vacation rentals, part of that is I want to be able to enjoy those. Um, so I feel like there's kind of a 50-50 split of like, how can we take making money and being successful, but doing that in a way that's enjoyable and is somewhat leisurely. Then I can buy houses that need remodeled, buy them cheap, remodel them, and then list them as vacation rentals. And then when I want to go stay in that place, I can go stay there at my own house. So, I mean, there's definitely a balance of like, taking the responsible, nose to the grindstone side and the light, playful, having fun side.
Hmm.
Um, and so, is that, yeah, so I guess it really comes down to how do I balance those out? How do I, what's the sweet spot? Is it 55-45? Is it 50-50? Like, what's the balance point of, and I think a lot of that comes down to for me is just like, can I balance how can I make enough revenue to be able to have that somewhat leisurely fun life that I want? But then, what's that look like? I mean, because that's kind of my goal, I guess, is to create more opportunity to delegate things, to step out of being so hands-on on everything in my business and being able to, okay, I know the tile guy is going to be there for 2 weeks. He doesn't need my help. I don't need to check up on him every day. I'm making some money off this guy, so now I can go to the lake for 2 days or
Hmm.
2 weeks, you know. Um, like, and even, I mean, that runs all the way out to retirement. Do I really want to retire, or do I just want to kind of continue running business till the day I die? Part of me really doesn't, I don't think I'd really enjoy just sitting in a boat all day fishing in my retirement. I think I get bored of that really quick. So, but I think I can enjoy working on a cabin and, putting in a 6 hour day, working on a cabin all day for the day, and then go sit on the boat for the other 6 hours. Um,
Sure.
so, I think ultimately my goal is to create more leisure, more, you know, um, yeah, more entertainment, more relaxation, but doing it in a way that the business kind of funds that.
Yeah.
I mean, if depending on where the direction it goes with coaching, like being able to travel, like you can travel and do that if you want to. Um, so does that open that door? Um, yeah, so I guess it really comes down to being on a practical standpoint of like some of those things are going to be costly, so there has to be some kind of passive income, if you will, to support that lifestyle. So given what I have, what opportunities I have now, how can I pursue those?
Yeah, well, and if we just come back to the statement that you said, right? Like, my goal is really to create more leisure, entertainment, and play over time and have the business that funds it. What's prevented you from doing just that?
I think in the past it's been this dilemma of we call it micromanaging my business too much or being too hands-on or when I was like in junior high, high school working at the cabinet shop that I learned to build cabinets, the guy that I worked for was like, don't ever hire employees. They're just a headache. It's just a problem. And he's not wrong to a certain degree, but I think I took that mentality again and kind of pendulum swung with it, like, don't ever let anybody do any work for you. Do it all
Hmm.
yourself. Um, and I've just started to realize, like, that, finding the correct, right trades people that can work under you, the right subcontractors, they might be more effective and efficient at doing certain parts instead of me being 100% efficient in every single aspect of construction. Finding a concrete guy that's way faster and way more skilled at doing concrete because he does it every day than me, who does it once a year, there's value to that. And so that's kind of opened up this whole different thinking of like, okay, maybe when it comes down to building cabinets, maybe whatever, obviously not the case, but maybe I can't find anyone else to build a cabinet as well as I do. So that's what I take on. But let
Hmm.
somebody else do the concrete, let somebody else do the framing, let somebody else do the flooring or whatever else instead of me doing it all. And so I think in the past that kind of, I guess, like I said, I call it micromanaging kind of don't let anybody else touch it. Because it happened years ago. I brought somebody on and had them work in the shop with me. And I had a customer that was a return customer. And they're like, I can tell you have somebody else working with you. Like nothing looks horrible, but every little bit doesn't have that attention to detail that I've come to
Sure.
expect from you. And so I was kind of like, all right, screw it. Nobody touches my work because you can tell when somebody else touches my work. And then again, kind of pendulum swung with that. Like I have to do it all. And, I think too, it's in this area at least, it's really hard to get a feel of what the market bears for work and nice guy tendencies of being scared to step out on a limb and not charging what I should. So like looking at the quotes I have now for putting hardwood flooring in, I never charge that much for a hardwood flooring install. I should have. I'm just as skilled as those guys, but I did it myself. I charged a quarter what they're charging to make it cheaper for the customer so that I got a job. When in reality, even if I charged 50% less, I left 25% on the table, still would have got the work and, you know, made more money.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of it is micromanaging and underselling, selling
Right.
myself short on my values.
Okay. So we can see that going forward, you know, the business that's going to fund the lifestyle that you want, these things are going to get in the way.
Hmm.
And so, what do you need to start implementing or taking action on that shifts that dynamic so you're actually starting to create that life of leisure and entertainment and play and actually have the business model that funds it?
Well, I think, what I'm doing right now on this current job of one, yeah, I've got all this anxiety about how much it's going to cost. I'm $100,000 higher than what I originally was thinking, or give or take roughly 75,000 more. Instead of shying away from that and being like, well, where can I cut costs? What can I do cheaper than somebody else? Just presenting that cost to the customer and going like, here's what it costs.
Hmm.
One, I still know for the scope of work that I'm doing, they're getting a hell of a deal. They're not going to find
Right.
anybody to do what I'm doing for that cost. Even though it's $75,000 higher than I was hoping it was going to be, they've added a lot of stuff to it. Um, I mean, what was a casual, hey, we'd like to make our screen porch bigger, is a $50,000 add-on. Well, there's
Sure.
almost the $75,000 that I didn't have in my original thought. Um, and then also hiring more subcontractors. I mean, I've got all the subcontractors I have lined up for this job, except for maybe a painter, but probably including a painter, are parts of the project that I would normally take on myself. Um,
Hmm.
and so, I struggle. I look at my painter's quote as $18,000. Well, why don't I do it myself for 16? I could save the customer 4 grand or, 2 grand or whatever. Well, why? What's the point? Do you
Hmm.
really want to paint the walls? No, I really don't.
Hmm.
Could I paint the walls at 14 or $16,000 and make money? Sure, maybe, probably, but I don't really want to. And so just changing that perspective of like, could I do it? Could I save the customer $2,000 to $4,000? Sure, but I don't want to. I don't need to save them money and I don't like painting that much. So I'm not going to do it. Um, and just having that shift, like when those temptations pop up of like, well, you could do this a lot cheaper yourself. No, I don't want to.
Hmm.
And I think the big thing is that a lot of my customers recently have been wanting turnkey projects where they don't do anything themselves. In the past, customers will do our own painting, we'll do our own, you know, disposal or demo or whatever that. And a lot of the customers I've had recently are like they're older folks that are like, we want to write a check and our work
Hmm.
gets done. And then it's like, well, that's too much for me to do all myself. And then being kind of forced into the need of subbing more work out. And the more I do it, it's like, well, okay, I'm charging a 15% general contractor fee. So I'm making this much off the whole job, whether or not I show up and with a hammer to the job site once, I can make this kind of money.
Hmm.
So why am I down on my hands and knees as I'm getting older, putting flooring down? I don't want to do that. Don't.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
I think just keeping that mindset going, and really it's a shift from a nice guy, probably tendency of trying to keep things cheap for the customers, something that I could personally afford, or maybe more than I could afford, but you know, trying to help them do it cheaper and just going, it's not my job to make this cheap for you. My job is to provide a quality product at a reasonable price. And if it's too high, then what do we cut out? And
Hmm.
I'm only going to do the parts of it that I'm either the most talented at or that I want to do. I mean, I might be as good a painter as the painter, but I don't feel like rolling paint on a wall. So I'm going to hire somebody else to do it.
Sure.
So I think that's where a lot of that shift comes from is just why do something I don't want to do? I mean, there might
Hmm.
be reasons. I mean, if the flooring company is going to charge $50,000 to tear out some old hardwood flooring, yeah, I'll probably do that myself because, well, I don't like doing the work, but if I'm making $200 an hour at it, I might as well do the work. But, within reason. But a lot of those things, like, I don't want to do it. Like,
Hmm.
like Why am I putting myself in the position of taking on phases of the project that I don't like?
Yes. And what is the reason why to make those continued changes in the business?
Why I would make those changes?
Hmm.
Yeah, to free up time for myself and to, take that shift. I mean, when I was younger, I just had this mentality, the harder you work, the more money you make. And as I've gotten older and started to look at like older, more successful men, either in the trades or any business, the wealthy men aren't the ones doing the hard work. It's
Hmm.
the people that actually know how to delegate properly and run the things that working off the people, the young guys that are doing the hard work. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think just as I get older, like I don't want to be, you know, I don't mind a good hard day's worth of work, but I don't want to do that 50 hours a week anymore.
Hmm.
Like, and understanding too, like there's value. It's funny, I had a conversation with my dad because my dad kind of taught me good work ethic. Well, then before he retired, he went into management. And he's like, at first, my dad always talks shit about his managers, like, oh, they're just lazy morons that sit at their desk and don't know how to do things right. And I gave him a hard time when he became a manager. And he's like, when I was a manager, I realized there's a lot of value to a manager who does his job well. And there's more to being good at your job than being able to do every part of your job and everything that needs to be done. And so that kind of, I guess, is where I started to think like, okay, so you know, I don't need to do all those things. I don't
Hmm.
have just because, and I think again, it goes back to identity. When I was young and had all this energy, it was like, yeah, if you're not busting your ass 14 hours a day, you're doing something wrong. You're just a lazy piece of crap. And it's like, okay, well, I'm sitting at the desk using my brain all day. I mean, I'm exerting my mental capacity just as much as I was exerting my back working hard. But there's skill, there's value in being able to pick up the phone and get work done
Hmm.
and planning out a project well.
Yeah, for sure. And so, we never fully established a coaching request for today, but this piece that we're talking around of creating more leisure, entertainment, and play through the business funding it, um, how do you think, like, how do you think we're doing in terms of moving you in that direction towards that?
Yeah, I think we're going in the right direction. I mean, I think, um, I guess you talk a lot about scarcity, and I never realized like how scarce I look at the world around me. So, I mean, some of this isn't even just for leisure and play. It's just to get to a place where it's like, I'd like to get to the point where I'm not, you know, working 14 hours a day to barely make ends meet.
Hmm.
Like, I think that's what part of the shift came from was I'm working too hard to make this little.
Sure.
And looking at a bigger picture of like, well, where's the money at? Well, it's not necessarily swinging the hammer on the job every day. There's some skilled crafts type work that I'm really good at,
Yeah,
and it's hard to teach. But as far as the guy slapping paint on the wall, I can find a good painter.
sure.
And I should be going towards building a beautiful kitchen instead of rolling paint on the wall. You know, I mean, a good painter's hard to come by there, but it's a certain degree, like just looking at that, like not just the perspective of um, only just having fun in it, because there's an aspect of that. I want to make more memories, have more time, especially when my kids get older. Once I have grandkids, I want to be able to spend time with my grandkids. And
Sure.
that might be, I mean, some of the best memories I have with my grandpas was working with them. And so being able to work with my grandkids, but it not be like, no, I can't have the grandkids around. I got to get 50,000 things done today or the bills aren't paid, And so
Right.
I think the leisure part is a key, like just not being and more abundance of like, yeah, maybe I piddle along might take the grandkids along or my youngest son along to work with me someday, and I don't get more done, I don't want to drive home at the end of the day thinking, crap, I needed to make $400 a day and I made 200,
Yeah,
you know? And so just having that leisure to it of like, okay, I only made $100 today because the kids went along. Cool. I had a good day. That's fine.
sure.
And I
So
think,
what do you see to take on as a practice or an action step to help continue to build on this path?
well, I think looking at the areas where I'm still maybe micromanaging or underselling the work, I think that's the big thing that's gotten in the way is just kind of be mindful um, as I do this quote, like, and even my business partner, he's talked about it up too. Like, he's like, well, don't do this job unless you're making, I can't remember what he said, $100 an hour subcontracting it. I'm like, well, that's easy to say right now because like you say that, but what are we making right? What have I made in the last 2 weeks?
Right.
$2 an hour if I'm lucky, not even.
I get
Like,
that.
so, it's like, well, $20 an hour is better than nothing.
Sure.
So should I really bid it out for that much? And then being like, yeah, bid it out for that much.
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't matter what you've been making. That's not what you don't want to look over your shoulder to wonder what you should make. You look forward to what the possibility is there. And again, too, if they took this scope of work to another contractor, what would his cost be? Another qualified person who's going to get the job done right, not just some guy that says he can do it cheaper. Well, yeah, I'm still cheap.
Hmm.
Maybe I am making $100 an hour, but I'm still less than the other guy, whether that's efficiency or whatever reasons that is, you know, it's still a good deal for the customer.
Sure.
And I don't need to
Okay.
sell myself short.
So you're going to look at the areas where you're still micromanaging or underselling.
Yep.
That's going to be one place. Anything else?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I've been working on is like finding ways to have leisure on a budget, with like,
Hmm.
how can my daughter and I have taken a couple road trips on the weekends, just gotten out of the house, just go for a drive. We take the car that gets 40 miles a gallon. You know, we went 2 weekends on a tank of fuel and packed sandwiches and went to the grocery store to get snacks instead of stopping at the gas station to get stuff to snack on while we're driving. Just, and we've had some great times. So I think just looking like for leisure, it doesn't have to be, you know, a week-long vacation to some grand place. It could be, you know, 6, 8 hours in the car driving around looking at cool places. That one day we just drove till we saw a marker for any kind of roadside park or anything. Just, oh, let's pull in there. What is it? Let's see. Oh, this one was
Nice.
dumb. Oh, that was cool. And had some really good times. So I think just taking off those expectations of what needs to be leisure. Like I said, even back to the point of taking the kids with me to work. It's not
Hmm.
vacation, but it's being able to slow down a little bit and enjoy what's in front of me and what opportunities are there. And I think that's probably the big lesson I've learned with this being so impatient with things being slow is it's like, yeah, well, sure, you've been sitting home for the last 2 weeks, not doing a whole lot, but that's time you spent with the kids throughout the day.
Yeah.
While I'm waiting for the other people to call me back with pricing, yeah, I get to hang out with the kids and spend time with them and be present in the home more. So there's value to that. There's leisure. I don't like it because I want to be, more productive. I've always had the like work hard, play hard mentality. And it's like, what if you just are leisurely,
Hmm.
not lazy, but just accept what comes. If the time is to work hard so you can play hard later, fine. If the opportunity is there to just work leisurely and have less crammed leisure, but still leisurely pace, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Um,
And the one piece that I think would be like kind of a great add-on to that as well. It sounds subtle, but it's practicing creating those leisure opportunities now. And even like, obviously if it's stretching the budget tremendously, okay, maybe you pull back on that a bit, but it's like that muscle of like, okay, maybe there's something that we want to do that's slightly out of the budget, and how can we make it happen? It's that
Yes.
same muscle that's going to apply to business or finding those
Yep.
job opportunities as well, right? So just continuing to sort of like just push the capacity there in that sense. But the key
Yes.
is like, you know, when you find those moments where you're like, we can't do that. It's like it's again, it's just sitting with, well, how could we create that? Right?
Hmm.
Just starting to continue to work that muscle a bit more. Um, there's two pieces that I wanted to speak to. Oh, yeah. Um, I think that there's a opportunity here. When you talk about leisure, entertainment, and play, my hunch of it is that you are more proficient on the business side. So it comes more naturally to you to actually like just explore, like, okay, well, what are the ways that I could create more income or I could be more effective in my business? And if you notice, we didn't spend a lot of time in the conversation actually getting connected to the experience of the leisure, the play, etc. So the practice that I would give you there is like actually spending some time crafting that out in your life. What does that actually look like for you both now and into the future as well?
Yep.
And that could tie into, I wanted to bring it back up because you did create or you were in the process of creating a project around your business. Where are you at with that?
Um, Really where I'm at on that is just kind of, I guess, working through, kind of trying to establish where I'm at on the construction end of things. I mean, I that was sitting pretty dormant for quite some time, and now um, I've got some pretty big jobs coming up that, trying to figure out how to delegate some of those things off. I guess it's kind of where I'm sitting at with that is I've got these ideas. They're still there in the back of my mind of ways that I could, think ventures I want to do, different ideas I want to do.
Hmm.
Um, but with the scope of work and the jobs that I have coming up for my construction side of things, it's like, okay, that really needs focused in two ways. One, to really establish like what's the possibility here? Because in
Hmm.
the past few years, it's been pretty little. Um, so if there's, you know, that's taken a lot of time right now to do quotes and do some of these bigger jobs. And but at the same time, looking at the opportunity of how do I delegate this stuff out so that this project could take 2 years if I do it all myself, or how can I delegate stuff out? And essentially, I have 6 months of work, and while I'm doing that 6 months of work, the other 6 months of work is getting done by other people. So I think,
Are you okay if I pause you here for a sec?
mhm.
So one thing that I would just offer you is like either continue the project with the business side of things. Again, you don't have to necessarily, you can decide if you want to continue with that. But the other thing that I would offer you here is I want you to write down that statement, right? So the statement that you said was, I want to create more leisure, entertainment, and play and have the business that funds it. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but what that feels like to me is that there is more of a focus on long term, creating a life of leisure and play as opposed to business, right? As you're kind of sitting with it, it's like it's not, it feels kind of more 60-40 in a sense, right? And so my invitation to you is what if you start actually creating that, it doesn't have to be a project, but like if you actually started getting clarity around what would life actually look like for me if I'm focused on leisure, entertainment, and play first, and having, sort of the business behind that, so to speak. Like you said, it's funding it, right? The business isn't the focus. It's the life of leisure, play, and entertainment. And so that's where my invitation to you is like either doing some journaling, kind of in the same sense of like, what are those leisure opportunities, both now and in the future? But it's also mindset. It's even like, if that's the direction I'm going and I'm putting my energy slightly more into actually crafting this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think um well, I'm probably really establishing what it is I mean, it's like I think the big hang up I run into is being self-employed. I'm sure you get this too. Like you don't get paid vacations. So you end up tending to not ever go on vacations because every day you're gone is money, not only lost wages, but output money that you normally wouldn't have. And so I've always been terrible at taking vacations.
Hmm.
So I don't know that it's necessarily like I think I have too much entrepreneurial drive to really be able to get to a place where I go, yeah, I just want to sit around today. And whether that's on a boat in a lake or, hiking or dirt biking in the mountains, like it's fun for a while, but I think I still have too much of the just not to prove anybody anything, just desire to be productive and create, build business, build, those kind of things. Um, but taking it from a place of like, I have to build this business to survive, to taking it more of a like, this is just fun. Like,
Hmm.
I used to build houses, now I build businesses. But it's fun to do this now. It's not because I have to, not because I need to make more money, just because I don't know, building this business kind of sounds fun. And,
Hmm.
we'll see if it fails, if it doesn't fail. But, I think that a lot of that comes from that feeling of like, even going into coaching, like that initially I had that fear of like, I don't know anything about this. And I hate to give up on my day job or whatever you want to call it, of my career of construction of something I know and I've been in for years and just go, yeah, all right, throw that away. We're going to go, you know, do this
Yeah.
new venture. And so, because maybe I'll enjoy that more, but will it create enough money for me to be comfortable and actually enjoy it? Because I think a lot of what killed my enjoyment in woodworking and finish carpentry and cabinetry is the stress of, can I sell this product for enough to make a living? Well, I'd like to just go out to the shop and work and be like, oh, lost $10,000 on this job. Well, oh well, I had fun making it. And when that $10,000 costs, you know, time with my family and laid on payments or bills or whatever, it's not fun anymore. And
Sure.
so, I think more than just so the fun and the play, it's the same concept, but it's not as much like, again, it just goes back to that leisureliness of, yeah, okay. So I started an LLC to do rental business. And we didn't go bust, but I mean, I just figured out that's not a great market. But I'm not like, oh shit, I have $100,000 in equipment that has loans on it, and we've got no money coming in, and this sucks, and I'm gonna go bankrupt and all of those things. So just being like, yeah, okay, well, found out that was a bad business model. We'll try again.
Okay. So, and the piece that I'll speak to here that I see for the practice for you, and you can decide whether you want to take it on or not, is that my feel of it is that the way that you're actually approaching this future vision of leisure and play is at effect. Because the way that you spoke to it was basically um, like if like this is not exactly how you said it, but it was like, if I spend too much time doing that, well, it's kind of lazy in a sense. Like, it's like I don't want to spend too much time doing that. And what that tells me is that you actually haven't clarified for yourself what that could actually look like. Because ultimately, you get to decide how that's going to look. But until you actually have some clarity, this is the dynamic where it's like you can sense that hey, there's a desire for more leisure and play and fun and entertainment in my life over the long term. But if in the background you've got this thing about like, yeah, but I can't spend too much time there. You don't actually know. You haven't actually defined it for yourself yet. And that's where I would say it kind of fits with the previous practice there of like, you got to get a cause. You got to get a cause in terms of what leisure looks like for you now, but also in the future. Because when you have a direction with that, well, then you know where you're going. And it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like you've got that in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do to a certain degree. I guess what I'm getting at is like, okay, a couple examples. Like when I was in high school, I had three or four different business ideas, and I didn't have to worry about is it legal? Do I have an employer
Sure.
identification number? Because it was high school. I could go out and
Hmm.
mow yards and get $20 cash. Didn't have to worry about what the what my tax write-offs were or whatever. You know, it just was fun to go out and come
Sure.
up with this idea. And then I could build a cabinet for somebody. I didn't have to worry about having a contractor's license because I'm a 16-year-old kid building a cabinet in a garage. Like it was cool. I could work on somebody's car, their lawnmower, whatever. And it was just fun because there was no pressure to it. And if I didn't worry about what my profit and loss statements were, it didn't matter. I mean, I wasn't going
Hmm.
to go homeless. I still lived at home. And so with my parents, so who cares? And now there's just so much of that pressure of like, you know, and I see it too. Like I enjoy working on vehicles, always have, except when you're broken down on the side of the road and it's raining. It's like, well, this really sucks. I'm not having fun. If it was in my garage on a Saturday afternoon, yeah, this would be a fun project. And I feel like everything is kind of this like whenever I have a project comes up, it's like, oh my goodness, it's that side of the road in the rainstorm, day late, dollar short,
Sure.
frustrated. And it's like I just want to get in general to a place in life where it's like I don't feel constantly, you know, just like my yard. I mean, it drives me nuts. I'm usually really picky about my lawn and the grass is a foot long. And I'm just like, you know what? I can be pissed off about it all every single day. I can get up and look out the window and think, you're a lazy scumbag that doesn't mow his yard and it should look nicer. Or I can just be like, hey, I got the wrong part to fix the lawnmower. It's not it's not working out. And it's not that I don't have direction. The goal is to get the yard mowed, but at the same time, it's not like, got to have it done 3 days ago or else
Sure.
everything's going to fall apart. So did
Yeah.
that make sense on what I'm saying? Like, it's not that I
Somewhat.
don't have a direction, just
Yeah,
I don't
and
want
I
to
get
put it
that piece.
to so much weight on it that it's like, this isn't fun anymore. This is just a,
Yes. And there's two pieces that I was saying, and we gotta start to wind down. One is to me, it sounds like, mowing the lawn, fixing cars is not actually like the thing. It's not the leisure thing anymore. That's actually more of a task. So what I really see here is it's an exploration. Again, going back to
Mhm.
that previous, you know, bullet that I gave you about exploring these leisure opportunities for yourself. But I think it's also to kind of tie it together, it's also exploring those business opportunities, right? Because if you're or exploring what needs to be created in your business now, because again, if you're coming at it from that place of scarcity is going to stop you.
Yes.
And so it's a matter of just like, hey, kind of like you did last year when we were talking about some of these business opportunities. It's like it's giving yourself that opportunity to explore and then really sitting with like, okay, can I do this or can I not? Is this going to leverage me too much financially and put me in a bad spot or not? All of it is directed towards putting you at cause in both areas, both with leisure and with the business. Because until you actually choose something, you're just going to be wavering. It's just going to be that same dynamic. So I really think that the practice there, and to make it tied into practice three, it's like, I think really the next step is just exploring. It's just exploring, hey, what are the leisure opportunities that I want? What are the business opportunities that I could potentially explore? And not getting stuck on that could be too much money or that could take me out or ruin me financially. You're not there yet.
Hmm.
You don't have to make that decision yet. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Which I think is kind of where I've been with some of those things, like, um, just kind of in the back of my head, like, is vacation rentals an opportunity,
Yes.
or could that ruin me? Is that just I buy a property now and then the housing prices drop? What's the economy look like for that? Is now a time to buy? Is it a buyer's or seller's market? Am I going to pick up a property now and pay way too much for it, and 2 years go, man, I owe twice in the loan than what I have in equity in this house or
Yes.
whatever. Like, and even with some of the business things, um, you know, like the rental stuff. I bought some stuff to try and rent, and it hasn't made any money yet. But I didn't put a lot into
Hmm.
it, and I can sell what I bought for what I paid for it, and end up, if not making a little money, at least not losing money. And some of those things where that's kind of where I'm at is really kind of just maybe I need more direction, but really just kind of being in that place of exploration of like, all right, let's look at what, real leisurely looking at those things is like, what's that look like? And making it kind
Yes.
of fun. Like sitting down a couple weeks ago, or a month or so ago, I sat down with the kids, like, let's look at, you know, have one tab open of one window open that's, VRBO's website of what houses in this area cost. And on the other page, have realtor.com pulled up and see what's houses in this area. Okay, let's just talk about, okay, so you got a house that's, they could buy this house for $200,000. You can rent it out. Looks like same similar house in the same area. They rent that out for $200 a night. How many nights do we have to rent that out? And instead of it being like, just kind of playing with that idea, like,
Hmm.
okay, so it takes this many nights. Well, that one's not a good. I mean, and we did it. I mean, my daughter pulled up some really cool house, and she's like, "Look at this one." I'm like, "Yeah, it's $1 million at $200 a night. How long is that going to take us to pay it off?" Like, I'd love to buy that house, but we're in that house for 30 years before we can start making
Sure.
a profit on it. I'm probably almost dead by the point I see that house turn in any profit for me. Right? If you want to do it, you can take it over at the time I die. I can leave it in my will and you can have it and start have money making off of it. But just kind of looking at those things leisurely with the kids, like,
Sure.
yeah, let's explore this. Let's see
Yeah.
what's, fun.
Yeah, and I would say too, like you could pick up from where you were last year, right? The difference is last year, that was the end of the masculine leader, and you didn't necessarily have support in that. Whereas like you could pick up that list and we could start working with it, next conversation type thing, right? And actually
Sure.
start creating pathways forward. So good stuff. For our next conversation, if you're open to it, I'd also like to take you through the life purpose exercise. I think from this
Okay.
conversation today, it kind of created a good inroad for us if you're open to that.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to give
Can
you some
you send
acknowledgement.
me
Yeah.
Can you email me or however, send me a list of the practices you have? Because I know last time there was stuff I had written down that I didn't think you expected me to, that when we talked today, it was like, oh, I don't know if you expected me to do that. And then there were things I'm like, oh, I didn't have that written down at all, just so I kind of know what
Yeah.
the practices. That'd be
Yeah, I
awesome.
can send you them for sure.
Perfect.
Um, so we'll schedule our next call after I stop the recording.
Yeah,
Would you like some acknowledgement?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I just, I really acknowledge you for continuing to push the boundaries of this conversation around like scarcity and just like survival. Um, I think that like that is a space that's in it's kind of it's like embedded in a sense, right? And so if that's been sort of the way of living and the way of seeing the world, it the work that you're doing right here to start to break that down and just be with possibility, be with that ability to explore and start to like just even recognize like, okay, like that feeling is there, that feeling of survival is there. And it's telling me something. It's guiding me in some ways, but also that like I can choose differently, or I can approach these things in such a way that it's like I can push myself to explore a little bit further than where I would just stop. Um, I just really acknowledge you for that because it is these small steps along the way that's going to help you break that dynamic. So I just really acknowledge you for that. And yeah, I acknowledge you again in that this conversation just to like continue to find that pathway towards what purpose means for you, what it fully means for you, and just empowering it, right? Like, that yes, you've got this purpose of and this focus on other and being of service to other, but also starting to see that it's like there's something here for you in that too, and it can actually be both. So really great work. Yeah, and I look forward to the next conversation.